nice and friendly. Okay, can everyone hear me all right? Great. So, like was mentioned before, my name is Noah, and I'm a senior data scientist at King, where we make games. I've been there for about a year and a half. Previously, I worked in a user-centered design agency, so I have a long-term relationship with design as well. And why am I here to talk to you about if I'm now doing data science? So actually, at King, we leverage data science quite a lot to work on UX. And a lot of what I do is actually quantitative user research. And I wanted to bring you a few examples of that. So yeah, I think last year we already passed 1 million levels played on Candy Crush. And we also have about 1.5 billion gameplays a day and about a total of 2 petabytes of historic data. So we do have quite a lot of data that we can leverage and impact our games with. So quick show of hands, how many people have played Candy Crush? Excellent. So in case you haven't heard of it, it's been on the top charts, on mobile charts in most countries worldwide since January 2013 when it launched. And it remains to this day the biggest game in mobile, and it's still very, still very successful and very popular. So it really helped us build. It helped us build a network of over 400 million players a month. So like we have a lot of players, a lot of users, and we would like them to enjoy what they're doing. But Candy Crush is really not our only game. We make other games too. King was founded in 2003. We started with online gaming. You know, we used to go to this like HTML Flash website to play things online. It was mostly skill-based. We actually published over 200 games. So Candy Crush was definitely not our first game. And you're very welcome to try them all. And yes, making games is hard, and it takes a lot of attempts to get it right. Even if you ignore Candy Crush, we make about $1 billion from non-Candy Crush games. So we're really working hard at it. Now, I like to say, and I'm really not the only one, that at King, we're using both our eyes, and one of our eyes is design, and the other one is data science. And we realize that either one of them would give you just a flat perspective of the world, and you really need both of them in order to really learn how to make our games better. So obviously we do a lot of user research and classic user research, as I've done before, from surveys, from viewing, eye tracking, all of these things that possibly many of you are familiar with. But until you really have a very large data set of daily interaction data from your user, you can't really get to this next level of really heavy quantitative user research. So just to kick us off, let me start with a famous story of level 65 in Candy Crush, which at one stage had an average of 130 attempts. And amounted to about 10% at the time of all of Candy's revenue. It was a very successful level in that sense, but it also caused 50% of churn. So we were losing a lot of players on this level. And let me read you one of our favorite quotes from a fan on one of our social media website. So after 2 months at level 65, I finally cleared them all. I was so excited, I screamed at my hubby to come see. And then it said I failed. I never noticed that beside clearing the board, you needed at least 150,000 points too. I cried myself to sleep. Now, believe it or not, that is not our objective as a company, to get our players to cry themselves to sleep. We actually want them to have fun. And as I said before, and as you really probably most of you know, we need good design in order to make things fun. And as I said before, it's not enough. We actually need some science. And in this case, some quantitative user research. So I'm going to skip all the nerdy statistics and just take you through some examples of how we actually use it in order to provide our designers and our company with more insight in how to make our games better. And really, games are about 100% user experience, because all the point is to make people have fun, and everything is just the interface. That is the entire product. So back to level 65. What does it mean that you have an average of 130 attempts? It means that that's an average. There are people who played over 300 attempts on that level, which means more than 1 month of playing, or 10 to 20 solid hours of just playing this one level over and over again. Doesn't sound like fun, does it? So the question we were confronted with as a business is, what should we make the level easier? I mean, what should we do, and what do we have to gain and to lose here? And just to clarify, this level was in a way considered a huge success for us. It has memes. Like, the internet loved this. People were very much engaged with this level, and people were posting online, "Today I cleared level 65." Like, our players liked it. And part of games is not, if we would make it all our levels super easy, people won't find the game fun. You do need to have a challenge in the game in order to truly enjoy it. So how do we actually do this? How do we figure out what's a good challenge and what's, well, maybe a bit too much of a challenge? So when you go back into our business perspective, we actually look at five categories of metrics that we use in order to try to quantify fun, which is really hard to do, by the way. So if you look at retention, obviously retention was very high. And virality, as you saw, we have memes. This level was really killing it on social media. We were, as I said, 10% of revenue for such a large, successful game is substantial income. And both for converting players and for monetizing later on. And engagement, which is a very fuzzy term, but overall, what we've seen when you look at people who are playing it versus people who are quitting it, it was definitely engaging to some people. But not necessarily to all, because some people don't want to play the same level 20 hours straight for some bizarre reason. So our question was, what should we actually do? Should we make it easier, and by how much? And for that, that becomes, from a design perspective, a very fuzzy question: by how much and why, and is it a good way to do? And how do you actually determine what should be the difficulty of this level? And what we ended up doing as running what will be repeated here several times is an A/B test, which is a way to actually experiment and see what should be the different result. And we actually decided overall to make the level easier. So now it doesn't have as many memes coming up online. But the reason we did this is what we found out, that while obviously the level was making less money when we made it easier, we saw that the fact that it's level 65, I don't know if you've heard, but last week Candy Crush released level 2000. There are a few levels after level 65. And if you lose 50% of players at level 65, you're churning out a lot of potential gameplay afterwards, and a lot of potential income as well. And what we've seen is actually that making this level easy and looking, and we really try to always have a long-term view and a long-term focus of our players. It was an easy decision to make eventually, to make this level easier and keep players in the game and enjoying the game for many more levels after that. So let me walk you through a few other stories, maybe less dramatic, but still hopefully potentially interesting. So our next story comes from almost 2 years ago, when we were launching Candy Crush Soda, the sister title to Candy Crush Saga. There are 3 of those, did I mention? So Candy Crush Soda, we've had a really interesting thing with launching this. We were testing flows of levels, of the very early levels, over 6 months, trying to optimize the right flow. And again, this is a space where working data scientists together with game designers was extremely helpful, because the game designers can produce, as you've seen, there's thousands of levels in the games, and those are just the ones we actually ended up releasing. They can create a lot of levels and come up with a lot of ways for the players to interact. But getting the first levels right is very, very important, because implicitly, it is also the tutorial to your game. It is when your players are actually learning what the game is doing and how to play it and what to do. And what we've ended up doing over 6 months is we had a team of level designers and data scientists working together, producing 4 to 6 flows at any given time. And we were testing those in 2-week cycles, and every time picking up the right one, the ones that were successful, and dropping the ones that were not, and trying to do all the crazy combinations that we can come up. So it wasn't even just, some of it was really about trying to have the designer have an option to really check what it is, a hypothesis or idea they had in mind, we think this is good. And some of it was just like, let's take a bunch of these things and scramble them up together and see what happens with our user engagement. And the fact that we can give them feedback from our players before we release a product is very, very useful for them to actually learn how, because again, it's a new game for us as well. And we need to learn, our games are eventually for our players, and we need to learn what are the players enjoying and what they're finding fun and how to make this a great experience for them. And so we organically developed the best levels out of that experience. So another idea we've had is to look at a new game feature. If you haven't played our games or any other mobile games who have similar features, when you reach an episode, when you run out of X amount of levels, then you get an episode lock. You need to unlock new levels. And to do that, you can ask friends for help, which is where you get all those annoying notifications from, among other things. And I can show you how to switch them off if you'd like. And you could pay to pass if you're really in a rush and want the next level right now. For example, you're catching a flight and you really, really want to play. Or what we had a new idea from a game designer. How about, this is a game, how about a mystery quest? They need to complete some challenge, and if they complete the challenge, then they will get to unlock the new content. Sounds great. But we never A/B tested it. It was released into the game without a test, and therefore we don't really know how good it is. And why is this important? As I've said, Candy Crush is really not our only game. And we want constantly, while we're developing our games and in general building new products, to learn and keep learning what is good and what is appreciated by our players in order to put that into one of our other games. And when I can't go to another game team and tell them, look, this provides 10% more engagement or retention or anything like that. I can't say if it's 10%, 1%, or 0.1%. And it's very hard to convince that game team to take their time from coming up with their own ideas and features and to develop a feature that came up in another game team. So that's just kind of a small lesson of really testing it and coming up, not with just like, I see this is good. I mean, the game didn't tank, right? So it hasn't been bad, but we don't know how good it was. Can be when you work in a large company or across different teams, can really help you convince other teams to pick up features and understand how much this was liked by your audience. On the other hand, we are also exploiting accidental experiments, which Candy Crush originally was released on Facebook, and later on we built a mobile version. And when we built the mobile version, one of the things that came out from our UI designer was that we need to change the core mechanic, because there are things that when you interact with your finger feel different than when you interact online. And then we decided to not just, we knew we were going to change it. We knew it doesn't work well when you use it on your phone. So we didn't just put it out there. We decided to actually run an A/B test and just release it to 50% of our players, knowing that we're probably going to go with this anyway. But when we've seen this, we actually saw that one of the things that changing the core mechanic did created a lot more of these power-up candies that explode and people love, because it's about crushing candies. And what happened was that we've seen that people love this. It creates a lot more explosions and all, but by creating a lot more explosions, it makes all the levels easier. And as you've heard before, making the level easier impacts our business model. So what should we do? Should we make them easier or not? So before making it easier, and it's not one level and having a funnel and getting people through. This is impacting us across all the levels in the game because it's a core mechanic of every level. So what should we do if the games are going, if all the levers are going to be easier, they're also all going to monetize less, right? Wrong. The game was more fun. People enjoyed it, and they were engaged more, they were playing more, and they were paying more, even though everything became easier. So really, player experience isn't one lesson that you learned off of one point for us. But again, it's something that we keep questioning, and we don't have this idea of what it is. But we keep going and experimenting and trying to figure out from our players what is actually more fun. It was so successful, and that we actually moved it into Facebook as well and changed the core mechanic across our games because it was just more fun to have more explosions happening. Shocking, I know. One more thing, as I mentioned before casually that we have more than 400 million players, that's more than the population of the United States. And one thing to take into account from that, that means that our players are really very different. They're different ages, they speak different languages, they're from all over the world. Also, they engage the game. Some of them have been playing with us since we launched. Some of them just started this week. So this is a very diverse group of players and of users. And that means that we need to take that into account as we build the game. How do we use that? So one example of how we do that is again, in different we think a lot about player cohorts and how they change over time. And what we've done, for example, again, going back to when we launched Soda, a second Candy Crush title, was we were testing it, and we're using a lot of our own cross-promoting across our games to when we release new features. And we were testing Soda, and the numbers were just amazing, like way beyond the business model and our expectations. And most people would say, well, that's awesome. We're going to make a lot of money. Let's release this thing. But we've stopped and paused, and we're like, what might be going on here that we're not taking into account? And since we're cross-promoting players, and it's the first sister title that we've released, obviously we've been getting through our promotions a lot of people who are Candy Crush players. And for them, playing a sister title is great. They're also excellent players. They know quite a lot of the game, even though we're introducing new game modes. They know the basic mechanics, and they know that they like it, and they're in it for the long run. But our cohort for testing the game would not be what would happen when we release. So do you blow up your marketing budget based on the fact that a group of Candy Crush players is definitely going to play the next Candy Crush game? So we actually did a small localized campaign where we actually paid an advertising company to get us paid installs into our games to get a cohort that is more similar to the structure of a cohort that we would get when we launched. And as soon as we did that test, all the numbers went directly into our forecast. So instead of just exploding our marketing budget, we were actually like, okay, let's make sure that it's right. And we kept the same budget after all. And we actually hit that. So that was a great success. I hope I gave you a few insights, a few flavor of our fun, frustration, a little bit of our challenges and successes. And I think for us, it's been a really exciting journey, and we really try to make it as much fun for our players as it is for us. Thank you.